Tommy Curran, I missed you last week. How'd it go without me? Was it a better experience?
We had a nice ride. Yep, we had a good time.
I feel like that's normally how people feel about this. Let me ask you, what are the Patriots up to with the Parker extension, with the Bentley extension? What are they up to? What's the end game to all of this?
I think a little bit of it, Jonesy, is bookkeeping. When you look at the Patriots team as it enters training camp, they have a glut of players with expiring contracts. So first of all, you want to look at that and say, we can't have everybody with expiring contracts wondering if they're going to be here or not. They also have $127 million worth of cap space heading into 2024 prior to these deals being done, and only 50 players under contract. So getting a couple of players extended, dropping their 2023 cap hit, even though the Patriots already do have about $15 million in space, if they want to try and put together $18 or $20 million in space and do a one-year deal at 15 with bonuses for DeAndre Hopkins, then you're good to go. So I think it's multi-tiered. Again, not the most important guys that I would target as being the expiring contracts, because that's Uche, that's Duggar, and that's Nwenu. But
those guys are all cheap. You're not saving any money against the cap with all those guys, right? They're all cheap right now.
Right now, yeah, absolutely. But you're going to have to make a decision on all three of them eventually, and all three of them are going to be quite likely, $12 to $15 million a year players if they continue with the rate they were. Certainly, maybe not Duggar, but certainly Uche as an edge rusher, and Onwenu was one of the best guards in the league.
Tom, you wrote on NBCSportsBoston.com about how money should be no issue when it comes to pursuing DeAndre Hopkins for the Patriots. Do you have any indication of how ownership feels about that idea of signing DeAndre Hopkins? Would they be on board with maybe not breaking the entire bank, but taking a little out of the piggy bank?
Well, I think that ownership is on board, and Robert Kraft has said this, with anything Bill wants to do, that he just wants to see it work when he does it. And Robert made it very clear and summoned reporters while we were at the owners' meetings to hear him out when he said, I would never put Bill on any kind of a budget. He has carte blanche to do what he wants with the roster and the spending. Bill is fairly economical already. But I just don't think they're in a position, Mego, where you want to be nickel and diming a player like DeAndre Hopkins and cutting off your nose to spite your face. Just because you've made mistakes with N'Keal Harry or Antonio Brown or Mohamed Sanu or you name the player, Nelson Aguilar, now's not the time to stop digging when you're in a critical season.
Tommy, I was wondering what the profile of these two players who just got extensions, if there's anything sort of similar that we should look into. Juwan Bentley just got an extension last spring, I believe, and Parker already seemed a little, I don't know, defensive maybe is the wrong word, but when talking about Hopkins, we're just worrying about ourselves. Are these the type of players that are more likely to want to play ball with this type of thing, and are there maybe guys in that locker room who aren't willing to do so? Lawrence guy's already holding out. Are there other guys maybe who aren't all that interested in trying to restructure to add more money this year?
I think if they're starting with these two, and these guys were the most amenable and the easiest to do, it makes sense. I do think there's the differences in terms of their role and their security on the team stands out more to me, Christian, because with Bentley, you have a player who has absolutely assumed that leadership role along with Duggar that would flow down from a Mayo to a Hightower to a Bentley. He has filled that role. He's become more outspoken, more congenial, more of a director. Even those, linebackers his size become more and more obsolete, he is seen as kind of a touchstone for the defense. With Parker, I think he was, so what are you going to do here? If you're going to spend, I think that's what his mindset was, you're going to spend all this time chasing DeAndre Hopkins. Are you guys going to cut me at the end of July and I'm going to be standing out here like an idiot? So I think that might have been the Patriots saying, no, we're not going to do that, son. Here, take this. It'll be fascinating to see what the details of that contract are, if it's really a big bump from about the $5 million salary that he's making right now.
We're talking to Tommy Curran, NBC Sports Boston. He wrote earlier this week, it's the most tenuous time Belichick has faced since coming to New England. 3 years ago, wondering how strong Belichick's grip was on the team's loyalty and attention would have been heresy. Now it's reality. And I, Tom, have tied that to how open and out there the Patriots have been in their interest, like via media reports, in Hopkins and Cook. It's not typically how the Patriots act when pursuing free agents. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that, but I feel that way. And it seems like Belichick should be more urgent. It is a tenuous time for Bill. Do you tie those two things together? Him being on the hot seat, if you will, my words, not yours, and the interest in Cook and Hopkins?
Yeah, I do. I think that they've scrutinized their team and the roster and said, okay, it's the end of June. We always do this. We're always going to make a decision at the end of June as to what positions need more help or need more competition. How can we get better? And I think I've told you the guys this before. That's how the 2020 Cam Newton signing evolved right around this time of year. End of June, they're like, well, I mean, I suppose we can play with Stidham and Hoyer, but he's just sitting there. Now, far different offense level, but I think he's looking at his team and saying, we need to be better than 8-9, which we were last year. We have the equipment to do it at quarterback. We should have it at a number of other positions. We have a very good defense. We need a high-end player because our wideouts aren't good enough. I just don't understand, Jonesy. There were guys available in March.
Yeah.
Like
2 years
why
in a
now?
row. 2 years in a row they've been available.
I mean, I get not doing it last year because you went hog wild in 2021 with the Aguilars and the Henrys and the Jonus, and you had to find out what you had. But this past year, there were players who were available, especially at the tackle position, which continues to be a burr in my saddle. I don't wear a saddle, but if I did, there would be a burr.
Tom, your buddy Phil Perry, he illustrated this case about third-year quarterbacks and the weapons that other coaches put around them, or GMs, I should say, in many cases, put around them to kind of gauge their development and take them to another level. Is that something that you subscribe to with the DeAndre Hopkins, that would be a good final kind of case test for Mac Jones to see exactly what his ceiling might be?
Yeah, I think that this is a good case test as well in playing without those. How much can you wring from players who are not generally seen as high end? Again, I think that we forget a little bit that Kendrick Bourne had a 55 catch, 800-yard season 2 years ago because last year was so bad. But that's a really good year, and he hadn't really done that in San Francisco. Can he do that like a player like Hunter Henry had a career high in touchdowns playing with Mac Jones? So I'm not saying he's a wonderkind, but this happened with, I'll say it, Brady a lot. He would be surrounded by middling players who would have very good seasons and campaigns, like Rashay Caldwell being a prime example. And that was, to me, a trait that said, okay, well, he's a pretty good quarterback, but you never saw Brady explode until he got Randy Moss in 2007. And he went from a 28-touchdown guy to a 50-touchdown guy. Again, it's just a parallel. It's not a comparison per se to their games. But when you look at all those guys that's still listed, whether it be Jalen Hurts or Tua or Joe Burrow, on down the line, the equipment that they had when they started seasons was far, far, far better than the on-paper equipment that Mac Jones has right now.
One more before we let you go here, Tom. What does it say that the Patriots still have Jack Jones on the roster? And I heard you and Phil talking about this a little bit on the Patriots Talk podcast. You had an initial prediction that you walked back a little bit by the end of the podcast. What does it tell you that he's still here, though? Like, I find it interesting that it seems like the team is standing by him would be my read on it. Why?
He must have had a very, very plausible explanation in some way. I mean, it's got to be a heavier bag. I mean, I still don't get how plausible it can be if you're walking around with a bag that's probably 10 pounds heavier than it would have been otherwise. Aren't you wondering what's in it? But somehow he had a plausible enough excuse, I'm guessing, for the Patriots to say, okay, well, it's a stupid thing to have happen, but it wasn't something stupid that he literally intended to do. Let's let this play out and see where the legal system goes with it. That, to me, is the main reason he will be on the team. If he had absolutely no plausible excuse, showed no contrition, and didn't even really know what he had done wrong, I'm sure he would have been gone much sooner. But at least he's going to get a chance to have it play out, which I guess, it is mind-numbingly ridiculous, but it's what the legal system is designed to do.
All right, he is Tom Curran. He joins us each and every week at 3:30 on Jones and Mego with Arcand. Check him out, NBC Sports Boston. Check out the Patriots Talk podcast as well. Tom, we appreciate the time. We'll talk to you next week.
Happy 4th, Tom.
All right.
Happy
Bye.
4th. Bye-bye.
Thanks.